Hari Om. Chapter 13. Bhagwan has already told Arjun and us that we are laboring under a mistaken identity about ourselves. The Purusha in us, of course we are made up of matter plus spirit. If there was no spirit, this piece of matter, this lump of oxygen and bones and flesh cannot by itself experience anything or act. So we are matter and spirit. That has been established. No argument about that? Okay, no argument. Now, Purusha, the spirit, is our inner identity, you can call it, to oversimplify the concept, or the real identity. And that identity is actually unattached, and its swabhava. What is its swabhava? Anand, pure Anand. When you are unattached, as in deep sleep or in meditation, to the sansar, there is no possibility of sukha dukha or any other experience. Therefore, that detachment itself is the quality of Anand, of pure bliss. That's why in deep sleep we come out refreshed, rejuvenated, and the mind is extremely rested and peaceful. And then we get engaged in the world again, and then the agitation begins again. That state of rest, that state of shanti, that state of peacefulness is actually Anand. It is the swabhava of the spirit. Bhagwan is saying only one thing to Arjun: look, Arjun, you are agitated about this battle, about having to kill your cousins and family members. Remember that the actor, the one who is doing the action, is only Prakriti. Your role in this world as a warrior, or whatever the role that may have been given to each one of us. So you are a warrior, and that role and function belongs to Prakriti. It belongs to the world of matter. That simply has to be completed. We have forgotten our true identity. The true identity, spirit, is not the actor and therefore is unaffected. Not only by action, but because action brings sukha dukha within. So by association, free of action, so free of sukha dukha. The only thing we need to do is distinguish this viveka. The distinction has to be clear when we are acting out there in the world. How can we do that? Because we are so engrossed in the world and so deeply involved with the world that we forget our true identity. For example, if there are situations and conditions and relationships out there, they suddenly we are faced with them suddenly, and our mind, body, intellect, it's as if it's flung out of us, to deal with it, and that is called a reaction. We just fling ourselves out into that, or whatever the situation may be. Having flung ourselves out, we need to draw ourselves within again. This awareness of the me can come only if and that was a beautiful video sent by Snehaji today, that we have to do only one thing: just stop for a moment, pull yourself out of the situation, draw yourself out of that situation, stop and do what? Look at the situation as if you are as Krishna says himself, you are an updrashta, a mere witness, in verse number 23 of chapter 13. Updrashta, look at the situation. And then, having become suddenly aware of the people, the situations, which may be provoking, or it may be a situation of great excitement and exaltation, or of great provocation. Both ways we are agitated, so it doesn't matter. In each case, when we suddenly pull ourselves out and become aware of what is happening, we have become aware of the gross world outside. That's one step. Take one step back again and draw within. In the midst of that situation itself, draw within and see what's going on in my mind right now. Oh, I'm reacting to this or that. Why am I reacting? The world outside is Prakriti. I'm reacting with also world of matter, that is my own guna. What is Prakriti? It is this Ranga Rupa Guna. Guna means these properties and qualities that we carry with us for a brief period of time. And so we say, oh, I'm just Prakriti, I'm responding to it. Guna Guneshu Vartante. It's only Guna, qualities, interacting with qualities. The moment we do that, we have drawn ourselves out of the situation and into the awareness of the real me. The real me has to be untouched. So that was actually a very beautiful video about stop and become aware that Snehaji sent this morning, and it struck me that, oh, this is exactly what Krishna is saying in verse 23. He's saying Upadrashta Anumanta in the first line, become a witness. And this is a small trick. It means that it comes with practice. Once or twice we have to work hard at it. At other times, later on, it will become our second nature. It will become natural, integrated as part of our personality. That when we are flung into the world and of situations and circumstances and words and actions and provocative words of people or whatever it may be, and sudden grievance and sudden occurrences, it happens to everyone. That's the nature of samsara. That's the time when we will be able to say, stop, what's happening around me? Become aware of the outside, and then become aware of the inside. Oh, this is how my mind is reacting to this. Okay. It's a simple, beautiful trick which is worth turning into our own swabhava, with practice, of course. With practice and with repeated action. Okay, so here the difference between the Purush and the Prakriti is the only thing he wants us to know. One is unattached, that is, the unattached spirit is me and need not react to anything in the world. We have forgotten this true nature. It's just the stop process is just a reminder. Stop, become aware. Stop, become aware. Draw the mind. It's just a procedure. It is also what Vedanta has called Vivek. Vivek means, oh, everything around is asat. So what is sat? Only the drashta, the witness who is observing all this. And then the distance between the situation automatically occurs. So vairagya, that distance is called vairagya. Vivek, vairagya need not be cultivated as words, as mere abstractions. They are real things to be cultivated as psychological practices, just as we practice our anger. We don't practice it, but yes, we practice it involuntarily. So there is road rage and anger and reactions to people who are envious or jealous of us or who want to put us down. Oh, somebody has put me down. So my man, samman, and that sense of ego is hurt. And I'm reacting to it without even realizing that I'm reacting. So that means I'm practicing a lot of anger and resentment. So why not practice Vivek Vairagya? Both are practices that can be done. So let's be very careful how we cultivate our mind actually. That is the only sadhana. That is the only effort, spiritual effort that one can say, I am making this sadhana in the world to cultivate a mind which is not getting entangled in the world, which is learning to withdraw more and more and still be in the world and be a silent spectator and a calm and anandit spectator. So, very careful how we cultivate our minds is what Bhagavan is saying. Upadrashta Anumanta, become a witness, because that part of us, that spirit, is actually the supporter, the fulfiller. Everything is taken care of. Don't have to worry. And it is also said in verse 22, who is the actor out of the two? Purusha prakriti-stho hi bhungte prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangosya. The cause of all karma phal is only the actions done out of these gunas. The gunas, the qualities of tamasic, rajasic, sattvic that we carry with us. Sadasadyo nijanmasu. And therefore, these karma phal are the cause of our janma and maran and punarjanma. And the chain of birth and death is caused by this. So what is it? I desire, I react, and those actions carry impressions. Those impressions carry forward. I cannot be free of my own janma bandhan created by me. So Bhagavan is going to give the path ahead. Don't worry. And these paths have been elaborated by him in the earlier chapters of the Gita. But once again, Like Arjun, we also need reminders. So Krishna is saying in verse 23, Upadrashta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. There is this inner Purusha, which is actually the Paramatma, the Maheshwara, the supreme supporter, the supreme being. That's part of all of us. And that divinity lies in everyone. Everyone, yes, even the saint, the sinner, the people whom we hate and the people whom we love, yes, all. Because if there were two kinds of energizing powers in two different people, energizing power meaning that power which makes a person to be able to understand or to emote or to experience something. All these need power. The body is just a bundle of flesh and bones. That power, if it was different in different people, it means that the truth would be many. How can truth be many? We have begun the very study of Vedanta on the premise that there is one and only one indivisible, avyaya truth. If that premise is accepted, then there is no logic at all for accepting or even for a moment considering the fact that, oh, that person is different or this person is different. Yes, in our gunas, in our prarabdha, in our the way we lead our lives, in our swabhava, and of course in our rangarupa and our outer personalities, they are all different. The only thing to be done is to look deeper, because everything is bound to be different out there. And the moment we look at so many clay pots, it's only a very, very seasoned potter who will look at the pots of different shapes and sizes and color and decorations and embellishments, and his eye will go only on the quality of the clay. This clay is from the riverbed of Ganga. Why? Because he is trained to see only the source, the clay. We haven't trained ourselves to see the source of all beings. We have trained our eyes only on the outer, only on the superficial, only on the rang, rupa and the qualities of the people and their swabhav and everything. Yes, of course, everything will be different. And our reactions are based on the outer. And our interactions are based on the outer. So we remain in our interactions on the outer level. The only thing that happens when we understand that everyone at the deeper level is made of the same divinity, our interactions will remarkably change, because then there will be no ground for reactions. That is the little shift that Krishna is probably looking for in Arjun and in us. Now, we talked about this Purusha and Prakriti for a long time, and they are distinct and yet they appear the same. So we stopped when we talked about the iron ball. Yes, that's the example we stopped at. The iron ball, which is put in the fire for some time, appears red hot. Neither redness nor heat is its original property. It has borrowed that property of heat and redness from the fire. That means that the Purusha, the spirit in us, appears as if it is suffering with us. Oh, I'm unhappy, I'm dejected, I'm disappointed, and I'm bereaved. All that, when I say I, the spirit which is attached to us as if becomes the conditioned self. Just like the iron ball is conditioned by the fire for a brief period of time. But the original nature, the source, the original nature of spirit, of course, is not agitation or any of this kama krodha. And therefore, when we are totally silent and shant and peaceful and santushtaha, triptaha, contented, that's when we are so much with ourselves. Why? Because that is our original self. So the iron ball, you leave it for some time, it will go back to its original self. So also water. Actually everything in the world which has changing properties, like water, even the physical things I'm talking about, not only the spirit. Water, when it is evaporated, it will condense and come back to water form. If it is frozen to ice, it will melt and come back to water form. It needs to come back to its original source, its original form. so also our entire restlessness in this world. Why am I not fulfilled? Nothing is fulfilling me. I have tried this and that, and travel and family and gatherings and what have you, and possessions, of course. I've tried everything, and after a while everything goes stale. It doesn't give me the same kind of satisfaction that it did in the first spurt of joy. And that spurt of joy was not Shanti. It was just a spurt of joy, of quietening the mind of that particular desire. But Anand, as in not being agitated at all, that continuous Anand, no, I haven't experienced it in the world. So that is the entire spiritual thirst. Where can I get it? We can't get it somewhere outside. It is us. So all that we have to do is understand our true nature is Anand. And that spiritual thirst is where, it's like Mrig Trishna, the musk deer who who jumps about the forest and says, where is that beautiful scent? I have a great desire of that wonderful musk scent that I'm getting from somewhere. And it madly chases about and dashes about the forest. Mrig Trishna, the thirst of the musk deer. We are like that. And where is the musk? It's in its own navel. It's coming from itself. We are all suffering from Mrig Trishna. Where can I get happiness? What's the next plan? When is the next holiday? What is the next thing I can do to elevate my status, my position, or elevate my happiness? Some more joy, some more spurts of joy. Yes, we can involve in a number of things people are doing around us, but that's not the ultimate source of Anand. With that understanding, we can engage with everything in the world. So we are in that Mrig Trishna state, searching everywhere. Why is it happening? Conditioned. That spirit which is within us is so-called conditioned for a brief period of time. To understand this conditioned self, there's another example given, that of the moon. So there is this Zen nun who is let's say contemplating on the bank of the pond of the lake, and she sees the reflection of the moon. She doesn't know it's a reflection. She looks at the moon swaying and waving and gently rising and dipping with the water, and she thinks this is the quality of the moon. So any reflection, of course, she realizes later in meditation that, what does she realize? That everything which is reflected in the world, and we as bodies are just reflections, and even our Jivatma, that Atma attached to this particular body, is only a reflected self. So if there is a reflection, what is the logic? The logic is there must be some original source behind it. When we sort of are convinced about this, that this is a reflection. Why is it a reflection? Because like the reflection of the moon, our lives are full of ups and downs, and they're not steady. They cannot be steady because our life basically is riding on the mind, and the mind is the most fickle thing that Arjuna has discovered. Chanchalam he mana Krishna, pramati balavadridam. The most fickle thing, the most fickle surface of the lake is the mind, and we are riding on it. And the self is reflected on it, and we think, that's the self. No. So the conviction is there must be an original source. If I see the reflection, and whom do you see the reflection in? In everyone. Ramakrishna said to Keshav Chandra, I can see the brilliant eloquence of your words. Where does it come from? I refuse to believe you are a bundle of flesh and bones talking like that. How can flesh and bones and bone marrow and a bundle of matter speak with such eloquence? And he was tearful with the very thought that I can see God in you. So that original source is reflected in everyone, in every sentient being, and also achala. That means it's also there as energy in all non-living objects also. Now, going back to our original self is the only thirst, is the only spiritual hunger that drives us to find out, why am I still thirsty? Why is it that nothing in the world begins to quench my thirst forever? Forever? But this world itself doesn't exist forever. How can it quench the thirst, any thirst forever. Everything goes stale, stale, stale. So now, having known that the real object is somewhere else, we turn our gaze to that real object. Now we turn our gaze to the real moon and say, oh, I was just looking at the reflection on the pond. I want to turn my gaze to the real thing. That's when we turn towards our true nature, you can call it Atma or Paramatma or consciousness or the ultimate reality or God or Krishna consciousness. How does the name matter? It only means that original source of everything is where our mind has to turn. If my senses are still racing outside, I shut my eyes, but my mind is still racing outside, my emotions. And I try to quell my emotions and my thoughts are still racing outside. No, I cannot. The only place we talked about it is in meditation. And also in deep sleep it happens. But in deep sleep we can't get Gyan, you see. It is in Agyan that we are experiencing the supreme bliss and Anand in deep sleep. But we want to experience Anand and supreme bliss in Gyan, in wakefulness. And that is in meditation. So, this whole breeze of samsara is shaking us about and we think that, oh, this must be life. No, this is only a reflection. Why do we say for a brief period of time that it is we are conditioned as selves? Because in the second chapter, Bhagavan has said already to Arjun, Avyakta Dini Bhutani, Avyakta Dini Bhutani. He's saying every living being has been Avyakta, unmanifest before this birth. What was our face like? Try to imagine. What did I look like before I was born? Because my personality is definitely a carryover from previous births. But what did I look like? I cannot even imagine. So I am Avyakta. Avyakt, unmanifest. Avyaktadini bhutani. Vyakta madhyani bharata. Only for a brief period. Madhyani. Madhyani means this small period. I am Vyakta, manifest. And so, and then I will be Avyakta nidhananyeva. After my death also I will be Avyakta. That's all is the journey. So why get so involved? Now, here it is said in verse 23 that Anumanta, Upadrashta, Anumanta, Upadrashta, all this experience that we are talking about of the spiritual world, or let's call it a spiritual experience, is in reality enlivened or enabled only because of that spirit. My hands, my legs, my senses, my organs, which part of the body is capable of experiencing it? My kidneys, the lungs, the pumping heart, my feet, my chest. How ridiculous. The matter is incapable of experience. That experiencing is happening because of the sentiency which is lent by spirit. And therefore, Anumanta here means Anumati. Anumati deta hai. It's permitting us to experience the world. And therefore, we also have the permission to experience the spiritual world. Here, I may add, we often mistake ourselves to be the mortal flesh and blood human beings who are having a spiritual experience in meditation or in satsang or in deep reading or understanding, listening to Krishna, or in a place where there is bhajan and kirtan, and or even if there is silence in a temple or mosque or gurudwara, we think we're having a spiritual experience. So the fact is that we are actually a spiritual being having a human experience for a brief time. Completely the reverse of it. Just a spirit. Avyakta dini bhutani. Vyakta madhyani bharata. For a brief period, madhyani, we are manifest as creatures or human beings. We are spirit having a human experience right now. Not humans having a spiritual. Think about it. Think about it. That's an amazing thing that I came across. Now, having seen this, once again we had mentioned, and I will briefly gloss over the kind of buddhi needed to experience this. This experience cannot come from a sthula buddhi, which is incapable of grasping even the very common concepts. स्थूल बुद्धि says जीवन मृत्यु ये सब क्या है, बस हमको तो यहाँ खाना पीना है. I am here to see that whatever makes me happy, I draw those things to me, and whatever things don't make me happy, I keep them away from me. What else? What else am I? It's a very sthul level of the mind functioning. So Bhagwan says, okay, sthul buddhi se to concepts nahi samajh mein aayenge, higher concepts. Tikshna buddhi, very very smart people, world very very successful in the world. Tikshna buddhi, they are also incapable of grasping it because their mind is too much out in the world. So they are street smart, world smart, but unable to grasp. When they come to the scriptures, they say, how come I have conquered the world? I have done the greatest of jobs in the world. I have led a team of 40 people. I have set up businesses worth so many crores, and I can't grasp the Vedantic concepts. Yeah, because it's not the same buddhi which is needed for worldly success. Tikshna buddhi, sharp buddhi, and Sukshma buddhi which is needed is for success, let's call it success, in the spiritual world. So for example, if you see the Mahatmas or the saints, they are incapable of functioning in our world. You ask them to run a shop, they will go into losses. They'll daydream or donate everything or make a complete mess of the business. Ask them to start a family, they are worse than the worst in starting a family. They really have no idea. They are not capable of functioning. They are not functioning from Tikshna buddhi, the sharp mind needed for sansar. And yet those Mahatmas, half clad, half hungry, wandering as if they are half mad almost, and yet they are able to grasp that highest truth, able to touch it at some points in their deep meditation, in their wanderings, able to touch it, because they are moving around with a Sukshma buddhi, totally incapable of functioning in the world. So there's this story about Kabir. On the banks of the Ganga, what happened was the way Kabir sang songs with such compassion and beauty, and the core of truth held in every couplet that he sang. Now there were other Mahatmas over there who were not very spiritual, but of course they are swamis, right? So they are also capable of jealousy. They said, all our following is going to this guy Kabir. Who is this guy? We are losing our following, so let's challenge him. So they went up to him one fine morning and they said to Kabir, look, you illiterate person, have you ever read the Vedanta? He says, no, you are quite illiterate even otherwise, uneducated. So we challenge you to prove the highest truth and to hold a debate with us in Vedanta, or the ultimate truth. So what do you think was Kabir's answer? So Kabir's answer was, I bow to you. I am too illiterate to engage in any debate that you may take up. You are excelling in elaborating and in being so eloquently explaining the Vedanta. You are eloquent, you are erudite, you are deeply educated. I can't match it. You speak about the truth with such erudition and eloquence. But I can only see the truth. How simply he stated it. Sukshma buddhi, I can only see the truth. I can only see God. But of course, you guys can talk about it, he said to them. And your brilliance, I cannot match it. So Tikshna buddhi and Sukshma buddhi, this is the difference. He said, I only see the truth and you can speak about it with such eloquence. The simplicity of Kabir. Totally unmatched. Now, the one who knows himself as this unconditioned self, which we are talking about, unconditioned how? Like the ball of iron, which withdraws itself from the fire to say, look, this heat and this redness is not my nature, not my original true nature. I want to withdraw into my true nature, uncondition myself. So this unconditioned field when we reach it, or is there a place to reach? No, that's who we are. But when we realize it, what happens in that state? What happens to us? So Bhagavan explains in verse number 24, Ya evam vetti purusham, one who knows this, prakritim cha gunai saha, who knows the qualities of the outer gunas, sarvatha vartamanopi, in whatever conditions such a person lives, whatever conditions, nasabhuyo bhijayate, is not affected by any outward condition. This is the result of knowing this truth. So we have spent hours and hours trying to grapple with this Purusha and Prakriti and this the Kshetragyam. Okay, we have struggled with it, but we must know what it leads to. It leads to this, that once we understand the nature of Prakriti, it has only gunas. Gunas means qualities and properties. And spirit, of course, has no qualities, so it's actually free and unattached. The one who knows this, that my true self is that, sarvatha vartamanopi, second line, in every situation, in every condition remains unaffected, untouched, knowing that this is not me who is going through the travails and tribulations of life. It is my body, it's my mind, it's my role, it's my guna, prakriti, it's my prakriti that's going through it. So subconsciously, I don't gather, if I don't react to anything or any situations, as he says, sarvatha vartamanopi, any situation, if I don't react, then what happens? Then naturally my antahakaran is man and chit, chetana, that is consciousness and the awareness, chit is awareness and intellect, does not gather any impressions. So when I don't have impressions which I have gathered out of my own reactions to the world, what am I carrying forward to the next life? Nothing, a clean slate. So when there's a clean slate, Bhagavan says, what form can I give this person? What form? No form. So no birth. So that's the very nature of moksha or freedom or liberation or nirvana, or call it what you may. The very nature is that when we don't have these impressions carried over as our own baggage, we are freeing ourselves from being born again. Therefore, Bhagavan says, Nasabhu yo bhijan, such person is not born again. Bhijayate. So this is the greatest declaration of the Vedanta, that you want to be free, it's in your hands. You can do it. This is the only result he has declared. Now, you know that when I am using ink to print on paper, that ink does not require, it's not dependent on the print. So I may like to print the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran or some smutty literature or some advertisement. It doesn't matter. For the ink, it really doesn't matter. And the second thing to remember is the ink can exist without paper or the printing medium, whatever the medium you're printing on. But that printed medium has to depend on ink. Otherwise it's blank. It says kuch nahi hai. So our gunas actually, they are dependent on this spirit to express themselves in the world. That's all. It's an expression. But if I don't have gunas, do you think that spirit can exist? Of course it can exist. It is the only forever, infinite, eternal existing thing in the world. It's not dependent on our gunas, but our gunas are dependent, we are dependent on it for our expression. But the ink remains the same in all situations. That is the whole part of it. So then, what are we doing in this world when we don't realize that our nature, our very nature is infinite? Even when we peep into our little mind or have a little journey, like in the meditation video I sent, where the facilitator of the meditation is actually guiding us gently through visualization into a world of space, pure space, and space behind our eyes and behind our heads and inside our skulls, and you must see that visualization. It's so powerful that at the end only space remains. When we know that, Even when we withdraw into ourselves, we are capable of breaking all the barriers of space and time. And guna, of course. That infinity is us. We can experience in meditation. But what do? Instead of that, we say, I am just playing the role of this miserable little mortal who is going to die one day. I know it. And yet, I continue to lead my life with a lot of delusion about the world, कि मुझे यहाँ से सुख मिल जाए, वहाँ से मिल जाए, and a lot of expectations and desires from the world. So I harbor all these expectations and desires from the world, like the musk deer who races about the jungle and the forest looking for that scent. The scent is within us. So we are deluding ourselves, leading a delusory life, and becoming miserable little mortals. So there was this Western philosopher, Thoreau. I don't know if you've read him. He was very fond of saying that, human life, you know what it is? It is nasty, brutish, and short. Short, I agree, but nasty and brutish? No. It's divine, it's infinite, it's eternal. So sometimes when we read Western thought, we are led away into a lot of materialism. But anyway, coming back, to stand apart from this delusory world is our only salvation. When we do that, we realize when we are not completely involved in the action going on around us, and when in the thick of action, when there is, and you've seen it at airports and on the road where there are people and the flights are suddenly cancelled and they're not taken care of, there can be a lot of anger and agitation. In the midst of that anger, we are all affected by it, no doubt. Our families are affected. There may be small children who are hungry. There are situations we face. There are countries which are facing worse today. War. How in heaven can they stand apart? It's only the mind that can have the strength to stand apart from it and still survive. When we are able to pull out of it and say, look, all this is happening around me, to the world outside, and what is happening in me, let me examine my fears, my insecurities, and of course my hatred, if we are harboring any. When we realize that all this is going on in the mind, it automatically evaporates. And that's the magic. It's the magic. The moment we become aware of, hey, what's happening in my mind right now, become aware of it by withdrawing ourselves into the mind and intellect, it evaporates. Evaporates into an observer and say, okay, then I need not be involved in petty, inconsequential, illusory things in the world, because everything in the world, there I agree, is nasty, brutish and short, is delusory, inconsequential and petty out there in the world. There's nothing that really is of such consequence that we must pay the high price of collecting karma and collecting vasana and coming into birth again and suffering a new life again. That is a very, very high price to pay. Are we willing to pay that price? Then we must go ahead and lead our lives the way we are doing it. If we are willing to pay that price. Because up ahead, I am looking for that verse where Bhagavan says, yes, in 29th verse, I'll come to it. I'm just jumping ahead. In the 29th verse, Bhagavan has said himself, Nahinastvatmanatmanam. This is the way the self will destroy the self. That means you yourself are destroying the opportunity we have in this life for elevating ourselves and for freeing ourselves. Freedom is of the ultimate value. That is the ultimate goal. And we are Hinastvat matmanam. Krishna is saying this to Arjun, 29th verse, that you are destroying your own opportunity by involving in this world. But going to verse number 25, Krishna very compassionately says, look, I know everyone is not capable of traversing the path of spirituality. I don't even expect it, Krishna says. So, such beauty and such tenderness in Krishna's words. He says, Dhyane natmani paschyanti. Number 25. dhyanenatmani pashyanti kechidatmanam. So I'll give you different paths. If you wish, if you have a quality of mind which is very sattvic, which is capable of quietening itself, which is capable of equanimity, of peace, of non-reaction, of holding it still and balanced, equanimity and balance, if you have such a quality of mind already from some previous sadhanas done in previous births, because we have evolved from before, right? Then in that case, your path, my dear, is dhyan. Yes, you can take the path towards realizing yourself. Dhyanenatmani pashyanti kechidatmanam atmana. The self will be realized by the self. Otherwise, what happens otherwise? Anne sankhena yogena. Doesn't matter. He says doesn't matter. If you don't have the quality of withdrawing your senses from the sense objects and reposing completely in complete stillness and repose within yourself, which is of course the quality of meditation, and quietening the noise of the outside world and the inner noise, of course. When that noise doesn't subside, doesn't matter. Do another thing, he says. Anne sankhena yogena. Take to the second path, which is sankhena, which is what we are doing. Take to studies. Listen to the scriptures, study the scriptures, do swadhyay, because instead of giving you a very high sattvic quality of equanimity, the scriptures will give you, what does it give you, by the way? It is only giving us two things. It is telling us what is truth and what is not truth. It is only telling us to sift, not telling us, it is distinguishing, sifting for us the truth and the untruth. अलग अलग कर रहा है, विभाग कर रहा है हर समय, हर शब्द में, हर श्लोक में, हर अध्याय में सत्य क्या है, असत्य क्या है, बस इसका विभाग करते जाओ, which is called vivek. So Bhagwan is saying, oh great, now if dhyan is not up your alley, it's not your cup of tea, take to swadhyay, sankhena, which means the path of knowledge, and there you will be with constant drumming of what is sat, what is asat, what is not true. With that constant drumming, you will develop vivek, and vivek automatically, you know by now, leads to detachment, dispassion, which is vairagya. So vivek, vairagya become your instruments. He said sankhena, take to that path, no problem. Krishna is so nicely leading Arjun, saying that don't give up, don't give up. So what does it mean, sankhena? The study path, repeated reflection, repeated studies, and no matter how many times we read this particular text or any other text, some of these texts are like oceans. You dip into the ocean and you come out and you say, I am refreshed, and after a while you want to dip in again, because the very depth of the ocean of knowledge is unfathomable. You will realize it when we go further and further into so many texts. So that's why when Chinmayaji had been asked by one youngster that, the Christians have the Bible and Muslims have the Quran and Zend-Avesta for the Parsis, what do we have? What is that one book? So Chinmayaji said, book? Welcome to my library. It's a library. It's a fund of knowledge. It's an ocean. And that's only a fraction which has survived, by the way. 4,000, 5,000 years, what has survived with us is just a fraction. But the truth itself, of course, is unfathomable. So, understanding the text over and over again, and with each reading, with different masters, with different teachers, different methods, because each teacher has a different methodology and a different way of expression, and it becomes richer and richer, and we dive deeper and deeper into the ocean, and our conviction about the truth then becomes stronger. So Sankhena, Bhagavan says, hang on to the path of knowledge, na Arjun. What's so tough about it? Hang on. Your conviction will become stronger towards the goal. And then from your Tikshna Buddhi, because Arjun definitely is one of the greatest warriors, he has a Tikshna Buddhi, it will turn to Sukshma Buddhi, steady, silent enough to fathom the truth. It's like the lake. When we are studying, when we are in satsang, or even in meditation, what happens to the quality of the mind? What happens is that the outer agitations, first of all, we are detached from engaging ourselves with the world. Ye karna hai, wo karna hai, our desires. For that period of time, at least, we are disengaging with sansar. And that means that the agitations on the surface of the lake have quietened for a while. And when the lake is quiet and no ripples and no moss on it, what can you see? That's when you can see the depth of it, or the bottom of the lake in great clarity. So that's when the mind, when it's cleared of all the smog of the engagement in the world and the thoughts that it carries with the engagement and the actions and the desires, the whole gamut. Just sit and watch your mind one day and you'll know how turbulent it is and how unquiet it is if we watch it. If that is quietened, just like being able to see the bottom of the lake, the shining pebbles at the bottom, we are able to see the depth of our own nature. And our own nature is pure spirit. It's visible only when that surface is quiet. Therefore, the importance to meditation. Or even Bhagavan says, in all his compassion, he says, don't worry, even knowledge can be taken as a path. Knowledge meaning the studies, which can be done repeatedly. Now, someone says, I don't have the capacities because, first of all, the scriptures are written in such allegorical, cryptic language. To decode it, it causes me a lot of confusion. Yes. And then sitting for hours and mulling over it and trying to contemplate, no, it's not my cup of tea. Yes. So, he's talking about the guna of the third kind of person, where the gunas are kinesthetic, where we want to engage in the world and yet we have a spiritual thirst. For that person, Krishna has already given the solution. Any guesses? Chapter 3, Bhagavad Gita, so many verses, Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, an entire elaboration on it, and he says, Anyena Sankhena Yogena, Karma Yogena Chapare. There are many others, Bhagavan says, where Karma Yoga is adopted. Why? What is being done in Karma Yoga? Actually, in all these paths, what is being done is that the ego is being negated. And when our actions are not driven by the ego or the desire, then naturally whatever comes to us is acceptable. It's okay. So that prasad buddhi, I'll accept whatever comes to me, is part of Karma Yoga. What about my action? My action then is offered to Ishwar. Just offered it to some invisible boss. Ishwara Arpan Buddhi, Prasad Buddhi. Where is the ego? Not there anywhere in between to obstruct my clear path towards my knowledge of the self. No obstruction. So, Ishwara Arpan Buddhi and Prasad Buddhi is Karma Yoga. So, what are the three paths Bhagavan has given? Dhyane Natmani Pashyanti Kechidatmanam Anne Sankhena Yogena Karma Yogena Chapare. So, who are the Adhikari? The people who are qualified, the people who have equipoise, equanimity, they are qualified for dhyan, or they can even cultivate it with some effort. And the people who are capable of understanding concepts and capable of applying themselves to studies, but they may also have mental oscillations, but not to a large extent, not to a tamasic extent. So, mental oscillations for them, Sankhya Yoga. And for those who have a large dose of mental agitation, all the time the mind is engaged, I want to quieten it. Okay, go and do service out there. Seva karo. Or treat your profession as a seva. That is one way to quieten the mind. So, Karma Yoga, Rajasic pravritti ke hote hain na, Rajasic, all the time agitated, ambitious and seeking from the sansar, of course, not seeking spirituality. Rajasic people, Bhagavan says Karma Yoga. Okay, so this is for the three kinds of people. Now, you mean to say there will be no roadblocks? Now the path is clear for me? No, there will still be roadblocks. Let us not be have any illusions about this. There will be roadblocks where I may not be able to meditate someday. There may be people who provoke me. I may have fallen into company of people who are so materialistic that they're leading me astray, and my mind is not held enough by me to keep withdrawing it back to me, and I'm influenced. The early seekers, the novices, are very easily influenced. We have to be careful the kind of company we keep. because it's so easy to be led into the material world. So there will be roadblocks. It's like the story of the king who once, in order to test his people in the kingdom, he put a huge boulder on the highway. And he climbed up one of the towers of his palace and he said, let's watch the reaction of the people. So up came marching some ministers and they saw this big roadblock. They couldn't cross the highway and they were so angry. There was road rage. Road rage when somebody is blocking me. And they stomped and they cursed and they said, this is a horrible kingdom, and they cursed the king. Of course, the king was watching, and they returned. They said, we'll do something else, but we're not, they refused to cross the path. Then came marching a knight on his horse, and this knight is a soldier, and this soldier said, there's a block. Let me go back and report this to the security of the king so that they know that there is a problem here and they can take charge of it. Okay, this is another kind of reaction. And then came some monks. They came to cross the highway. They couldn't, and they looked here and they looked there. They looked at the heavens and they said, Bhagwan, aapki jaisi marzi. I think we bow to your grace and your decision. Whatever you do is okay. And they returned. Everyone returned. Then came the peasant, a humble peasant who at the end of a hard day's work on the farm and was pulling his cart also with his vegetables, he looked at the boulder, and with whatever little energy he had left at the end of the day, he actually pushed the boulder out of the way, saying, oh, this is going to block the path of so many soldiers and ministers and monks, and they're important people who have important work to do, so let me help. And he just pushed it a little bit, so the boulder budged. And guess what he saw beneath the boulder? He saw a bag of gold which was hidden there by the king. So what does this show? Yes, of course, the peasant was not doing it for the gold, but there are rich dividends, riches to be gathered by removing the boulder. And their second lesson from this is, our obstacles are those blocks which we see, na? Aaj meditation nahi kar sakte. I need a teacher for helping to meditate. Okay, so find a teacher. This is not your block. Unblock it. I'm unable to understand how slow these verses are going. How many more verses to go? Let me go to the end of the book. Blocks, blocks, blocks. And remember, the lesson to learn is that these are not obstacles. The obstacle is the path. These blocks are not obstacles. I repeat, these obstacles are the path. Which means if we learn to get over it, cross it, move it, then we are on the path, like the peasant. So he did the wise thing. But what about the lazy ones? So Bhagwan, you've talked about the sattvic ones. You can meditate. And the one who have vivek and vairagya, oh, lucky people. They can do studies, heavy studies actually, Sankhya Yoga. And those who are engaged in the world with rajasic pravritti, the energy and ambition to work in the world, karma yoga, but without expectation of result, okay, without karma phal. But what about the tamasic? What about those? What is tamasic? It's going to be dealt in great detail in many chapters up ahead, 14, 17 and 18. So very briefly, tamasic is described in the Vedanta as alasya, nidra, pramad. 3 words describe the tamasic. Alasya, of course, laziness. Nidra, oversleep. Oversleep is just a symbol to denote excess of anything. It's not only excess of sleep, excess of food, excess of drinks, excess of socialization, excess of shopping, excess of extravagant expenditure, excess of engaging in sensual pleasures. It is that excess which stands where the word nidra stands for. So alasya, nidra, and alasya stands for what? Not just physical laziness, of course. It stands for the laziness of the mind and the intellect to say, this is too hard to grapple with. Let me just give it up. And many a times we have given it up. Why not? Many times we have grappled and we have found some some text somewhere, given it up, and maybe in our previous lives also. But systematically, in a sustained manner and with consistency, we can do it only when there is no mental, intellectual alasya. So alasya is also a wider term. Nidra, excesses in anything, and pramad. Pramad means negligence. That means I have my duties, but I neglect to do it. My first duty, of course, is to realize my own goal. And that is the biggest duty we neglect in this life, by engaging in a very materialistic world. So what about those tamasic people? Is there a solution for them, Krishna? I'm sure there must be. So Bhagavan says in verse number 26, Anye tvevamajanantah Shrutvanyebhya upasate tepi chatitarantyeva mrityun shruti parayanaha. Others who are not knowing and who don't have the capacity to do dhyan, samadhi, yoga, and of course swadhyay, studies, scriptures, karma yoga. But Bhagavan says, even if they have heard about this truth, about this higher principle, this God principle, from someone, in some way, they are simple folk. They are very simple in their mind, simple folk. What do? They start worshipping. They may not even know the higher principle, but they, upasate is the word used here by Bhagavan. They start worshipping. See the beauty of it? Bhagavan has noticed everyone who is on the path. The sattvic, the rajasic, and the tamasic. So he says, Shrutva pyebhya, having heard about there's some great power in this world. In some satsang, some Mahatma, some sannyasi, somewhere has spoken about it. In every village in India, there is, you will find some sannyasi or a saint or a teacher or not a guru, but some kind of a fakir. And even if these words are uttered by them through some songs or through some poetic literature like Kabir, these simple folk, you may call them tamasic, they are not tamasic out of their choice, it's ignorance, right? They start upasate. How beautiful. Krishna says, they start worshipping that higher power, whatever it may be. Tepi chati taranteva. They also cross over beyond death. Wow, this creates some hope in us. Yes, I can also cross over death. Tepi chanti taranteva mrityum. They cross over beyond death. Mrityum shruti parayanaha. Shruti parayan. They are shruti parayan means they are dedicated to the words. They hang on to the shruti, the words they have heard from some Mahatma, and they treat these words as their refuge. This is my refuge. So when you hear words of Kabir and Tulsi, not Tulsidas of course, these saints who are not very highly educated, it sounds as if they are speaking the language of the very common man, of the illiterate. Yes, the literature, the literary words may be missing, but the refinement of the language and the poetic finesse with which Vedavyasa handles all these literature like Mahabharata and Gita may be missing. But the truth shines through like pearls in every word that even Kabir utters. So the common folk who go to listen to these people, they treat these words as their refuge, as something that will give them succor, support. So Shruti Parayan, Shruti Parayanaha, such are the people also, Bhagavan says. Yes. Why? Because they have Shraddha. They have Shraddha that ye Sant ne ye bola hai to ek higher power to hoga. What is that higher power? They don't know. But there is this principle of truth जिसमें उनकी श्रद्धा बस जाती है. बस, that's enough. That's enough for them to cross over. Maybe not in this life. वैसे तो हमको स्वाध्याय स्टडीज करके भी एक लाइफ में नहीं होगा, बट दैट प्रिंसिपल ऑफ ट्रूथ में जो वो श्रद्धा उनको हो जाती है, भगवान सेज इवन विदाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग दे गेट इनटू उपासते, प्रेयर एंड वर्शिप, एंड दैट श्रद्धा इज द ब्यूटी विच विल टेक देम फॉरवर्ड. सो इस पर एक कमेंट्री लिखी थी आदि शंकराचार्य जी ने, और उन्होंने कहा था, आदि शंकराचार्य जी बाय द वे हैव कमेंटेड ऑन 11 उपनिषद्स एज वेल एज गीता. So in this part, Shankaracharya ji says कि if the seekers, the progress of the person who has not even understood the proper instructions, but only on the authority of the saint or the instructions, बस उसकी authority को उन्होंने पकड़ लिया और they are able to make such progress, then he says, by just hanging on to the authority of that instruction, then can we appreciate how much the Shastra or Vivek or Vairagya how far it can take us. So we are in a much better position. We are thankful to God, grace of God, that we are in a position to actually grasp the highest truth. And if we give that up, that opportunity, then Shankaracharya says, then there is less hope. Because can we appreciate how much progress we can make by actually engaging in Shastras, when the ordinary folk are also capable of it by just ordinary upasana, upasate, 27. But what exactly is that ultimate goal to be realized? What exactly it is? I have some idea, some vague idea. Okay, there is this spirit and this Paramatma. So Bhagavan says in the 27th verse, what is that ultimate goal? He says, listen. Yavat sanjayate kinchita sattvam sthavara jangamam kshetra kshetragya samyogam tadvidhi bharatarshava. Whenever any being, human being, a creature is born, whether it's moving or unmoving, know this, you must know this, Arjun, that creation, that creature has come into being only and only with the combination of two things. Again, he is wrapping up like a good teacher. He is giving the summary. It's the combination of kshetra, kshetragya, samyogam, yoga of matter and spirit, which comes together. So, this whole sansar is actually matter and spirit only. Mistaken identity and real identity, we have to figure out for ourselves. I'm going to end once again at the risk of being repetitive, because I have quoted Rudyard Kipling before, and I'm tempted to do it here in closing this section. Why? Because here Bhagavan has said very clearly that the actions that are done by the Prakriti, be careful, don't carry them forward with you. How? By detaching your mind from it. By detaching your mind means how should I live in this world such that I do not carry impressions. Simple. Do you have strong likes, strong desires, strong dislikes? That is going to create a strong impression. So then how should I lead my life? Okay, so I'm tempted to quote Rudyard Kipling again, which I have quoted before, that how we can lead our lives is by not giving vent to strong likes and dislikes and desires, because these are the only things we are reacting to in our life, right? Strong likes. See, mild likes and dislikes are okay because we are human. I'm talking about those strong likes and dislikes and strong desires which upset us. So, those cause strong impressions. How to lead my life? Rudyard Kipling from the poem If. The Anglo-Indian poet, everyone knows about him, from The Lion King. If you can keep your head, he says to his son, if you can keep your head means be equanimous, when all about you are losing theirs. In a road rage, everyone is angry. When all about you are losing theirs, if you can keep your head and they are blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself and when all men doubt you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. It's okay. If they doubt me, it's okay. If you can wait and not be tired of waiting, or being hated, don't give way to hating, or being lied about. There will be people who will tell lies out of envy, jealousy, hatred. They'll tell lies about us. Being lied about, don't deal in lies. A simple path given by Rudyard Kipling to his son, and it's so Vedantic that this is the simplest way to live so that we don't gather a heavy crust of vasana for a punarjanam. if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, and if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you and make allowances for their doubting too, that means forgive them. If you can wait and not be tired of waiting, that's because we have to have titiksha. You see the word titiksha? And make allowance for their waiting. The word kshami, Bhagwan has used in the previous chapter these words, kshami, titiksha. And being hated, don't give way to hating. Bhagwan has used the word adveshta. Do not hate, adveshta. Or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Bhagwan has used the word to be shuchihi. If you remember the long list in the previous chapter. And also in 13th chapter. And yet, don't look too good as if, I am talking from a high point, from a high platform. Oh, I know this, I know that. Don't look too good or too high, not talk too wise. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, how beautiful. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, nirahankaraha is the word. And loving friends and foes cannot hurt you means, I'm picking out words from this chapter and the previous that Bhagwan has used. Tulya ninda stutihi. Be equanimous, treat them as same. Ninda stutihi, blame and fame and defame. Tulya ninda or stutihi. Neither friends nor foes can hurt you. If all men count with you, but not too much, that means they matter to you, but not too much. See, Bhagwan has used the word udasin. Udasin meaning dispassionate, sitting above. If you can make one heap of all your winnings, make one heap of all your winnings, that means all our possessions, and lose them one fine day. It happens in the world. And lose them and start again at your beginnings. Bhagwan has used the word nirmamo. Mama, mamatva, mera, mera, mera. Yes, the belongings were yours and you lost them in the turbulent world. So what? I just picked out these words and I found, hey, Kipling, how come he knows so much about Vedanta? And never breathe a word about your loss. Sama dukkha sukha. Yes, Krishna's most famous words. Sama dukkha same sukha dukkham. Be equanimous. Don't breathe a word about your loss. Then, what is it? Then yours is the earth, my son, and you will be a man. Okay, so he said it for a son who wants to lead a good life in the world. But for Krishna, he wants for Arjun not just a good life in the world, not just success in the battle of Kurukshetra, but he wants Arjun to be a Siddha. Siddha means a realized person. So for that Siddhi, a simple life like this. And you can Google it out, Rudyard Kipling. The poem is called If You Can. So the title is also called If. It's one of my inspirations. You can Google it out anytime. Keep it as an inspiration. It used to be on my office door for many years. Shared it with all my teachers and children. So in the school, where I taught. Well, everyone has some piece of inspiration somewhere tucked away. This is mine. And we may like to use it. So going ahead, Bhagwan is going to talk about what exactly is that ultimate goal. And is there really just one self everywhere? Then how can I lead my life? Going ahead next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.